Hello, my profane friends. This is now part 2. If you missed part 1, get back over to part 1 because I had a lot more information about gang stalking freakmasons. Yeah, and the way they can hassle you within your community, and they're all perverts. But anyway, this was the last video I did. Then it went to this, okay? So this is part 2 now. Okay, and I actually changed the video dialogue. If I can do it, how do I do this? Wait a minute. So I do this. I've actually changed it. Oh, I'll show you that in a minute. I just want to show you here. If you go down my wall, yeah, this is this video here. Stuart shushed Macintosh, but go down my wall. I'll get to the point. You know me. I like to jump about a bit. You know what I mean? I'm like Zebedee. Oh, how wonderful you lot are! I'll tell you, you're the best. Remember that, you're the best of the best of the best. Not you freakmasons, you gang stalkers. Anyway, where is it? Oh, I'm on my other channel. How exciting. You know what I mean? But yeah, that takes you to this. Anyway, yeah, right. Look, Masonic police symbolism. You must watch Masonic police symbolism because it teaches you and learns you the 232 and 323 of Freakmasonry, yeah. Then look up Masonic triple cross. Do you know what I mean? But this is all to do with gang stalking. You know what I mean? And once you see the,
do you know what I mean? Well,
and once you learn the gang stalking, then click more. Oh, wait there. I should have done it from the other side, really. But that'll give a, you know. But this is all to do with Masonic police symbolism. Okay, I uploaded it 3 years ago. And then you got part 2. And I think it got up to about 16 parts, yeah. It shows you how they own the hotels and everything else. And then you got Masonic Drug Watch, obviously. This is part 1. I actually changed.
Oh, hello, my profane friends. How are you?
I changed that actually to Masonic Gang Stalking, Weirdos and Perverts from Great Yarmouth part 1. So this is now Masonic Gang Stalking, Weirdos and Perverts from Great Yarmouth part 2. Okay, so that's where we got to this piece here, yeah. But what I want to do before we get to her, okay, there's a few up here I just want to go through. Okay, I think there's one there already, but this is in part 1. I mentioned the plug, okay, that I use and other bits. So I'm going to show you now what I was referring to. Okay, here we go. Listen to the video.
Hey friends, this is to my gang stalking part 2 video. If you haven't seen part 1, get over there. But as you can see, the SIM card goes right in there. And I can ring this up, as you can see. It's just a normal plug that I mentioned earlier. As you can see, it's been well used. Oh yeah, baby. But I put the SIM card in there. And I can record, well, let's put it this way, get yourself one. The next device I'm going to show you, I've used for many, many years. It's the best thing you can use. And it's a Tascam, yeah? Okay. Now, I wear this for hours on end, and it records for hours on end. It picks up any comment that people make towards me and everything else, okay? And like I said, it's well hidden. One of my friends actually said to me, oh, come here you, look, the springs are coming off, let's put this back together. Come here you. Anyway, so get yourself a Tascam. It's got a beautiful little mic you hide. Yeah. The only thing I didn't like on it, and if you know me, you know exactly what that is. 232. The Masonic symbolism, look. But it's quite ironic, the amount of information I've found with that 232 mic. But, yeah. So get that, and you can secrete this on yourself, and it records for hours. Look one up on the internet. In fact, I'll just get you a link, and I'll show you what it can do. They use these for weddings, you know, recording weddings and that. One of my friends, I won't say who or whatever, obviously, go, you're always carrying that coat about. Of course I'm carrying that coat about because it's recording everything that goes around when I'm not there, and I leave my coat on the back end of a chair. Do you see what I mean? And every bit of conversation is picked up and recorded. Whatever's been said about me, whether they're going to kill me, put me in jail for 30 months or anything like that, is picked up, you see. Names are mentioned and everything else. I am the best go-to grand architect of the ultimate Masonic demise, baby. Everyone knows I'm the go-to, the grand architect of the ultimate Masonic demise, baby. But yeah, many times save. So if you want to know what people are saying about you, get yourself a plug, get yourself a Tascam, put it in your jacket and leave your jacket on the chair. Do you know what I mean? And when you're not about, people love to talk about your gang stalking, what they're going to do to you, whether that's murder, put you in jail, plant drugs on you, whatever that may be. But anyway, my profane friends, you know me, I don't like to brag, and I'm not giving everything up. There's a lot of other tools I use that are in other videos I've got ready for when they kill me, that you can have the ability to use. But if you are being gang stalked and they do a lot of street theatre on you, just wear one of these babies, you know what I mean? You'll pick it all up. Anyway, have a great day, Sugar Puffs.
Now, that was part 1. And then what I forgot to show you was the actual mic on the plug. So here you go, part 2 of this little video.
Oh yeah, there's a part 2 to this video. Yeah, that's where the mic is, yeah? Right where that hole is. You know what I mean? But like I said, get it. And a Tazimo, or whatever they're called. I'll show you the link on that. Like I said, this is part 2. But get the video, get the Tascam, because that'll help you, do you know what I mean, throughout your life, all the time, picking up the street theatre, you know what I mean. And then when it comes down to the exposure of their nonsense, you've got them by the bollocks, you know what I mean. But use it, you know, and I promise you, within what, if you're a regular getting gang stalked or harassed, you'll have enough evidence within a month, you know what I mean? It never stops, it never ends. They're dumbasses, you know what I mean? Like I said, they just don't stop and never will, you know what I mean? Because they're perverts, you know. Anyway, have a great day. Remember, if you're being gang stalked, or you're a perjured individual, or a target, or what they like to call me, a mark, then get yourself the camera, recording devices, that's all I'll say, digital cameras, you know, you've got to become a detective, do you know what I mean? And me, I'm better than Columbo, you know what I mean? I'm better than Cagney and Lacey, I would say that, but hey, I'm no, you know what I mean? But yeah, I'm definitely better than Columbo and Hercule Poirot, you know what I mean? But that's what you got to do, you know, be an Agatha Christie, you know, and you've got to be professional, buy the best secret hidden cameras, everything, you know what I mean? You've got to stick recorders, you know, when you sit at a table, stick a recorder under the table, a digital recorder, shit like that, do you know what I mean? And play them at their own game, because they don't talk when you're there, they talk when you're gone to the toilet, do you see what I mean? Or you say, I'm just popping to the shop, and while you're gone, that's when they're talking about you. You know what I mean? And the evidence will build up, I promise you, especially if they're going to murder you. Anyway, have a great day. And there's name calling. Their names that you can record is unreal. You know what I mean? And like I said, you just can get them by the bollocks, yeah? And really squeeze hard, because their names are being mentioned over and over and over again. Do you know what I mean? You know, and then you can get them on a joint enterprise, and then when they get arrested and they sit in themselves with their heads in their hands, do you know what I mean? You know, they start grassing each other up, because then there's no brotherhood, there's no loyalty, because they're going to jail for a very long time, do you know what I mean? And like I said, it's not, you know, I'll just sat here, get on with it, do what you want to do, you know what I mean? You're building your little empires, your legends within the community, you know, all your reputation is the best, you know, you're even getting into the fucking Great Yarmouth Mercury all the time, do you know what I mean? Keep going, keep doing what you want to do, but it'll all come tumbling down, you know what I mean? And that's the important thing, you know, the Freakmasons, especially them little twats that get up in that special little room at the assembly halls, you know what I mean? That little, you'll never get up in there. Oh no, not with them perverts, no way. But I know, let's put it that way, I know. Anyway, my profane friends, like I said, get yourself equipment and be the best spy in the world, you know what I mean? Have a great day. Look at that. You won't believe that would record conversations, would you? It's wonderful. And like I said, just for just for their thing. I've got no information in my house at all, so you can fucking raid it as much as you want, send the police here, do whatever you want. There's no information here for you to be had, you know what I mean? The information will come out when I decide, not when you decide or want to, because you send some Freemason policeman here. Have a great day.
And there we go. You know, that's just 2 items, yeah? I've got many more I could show you, yeah? It's just unreal. Maybe if there's a third video, I'll show you some of my other spy equipment, yeah? What I've used over the years, okay? You know, it's just amazing, you know, what you've got to do if you're gang stalked, you know what I mean? And you've got to do it, because they won't relent, they don't stop, they never give up. Do you see what I mean? It's always the same, over and over again, you know? Do you harm? But here it is, look, read it here, look, you see? I'll leave it, and you can look, not only do they want to have their evil way with you, but they're also confident they won't get caught. You see, they're so confident, and that's why they don't never give up. They're like all criminals. That's like paedophiles, yeah? They're always getting caught, but they never think they do. And then when the knock comes on the door, and they got all the evidence presented in front of them, they still think they're they're innocent, they got away with it, blah, 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 you know what I mean? Unreal, you know. That's like a burglar when they get caught for burglary. Go, well, how did I get caught? You know what I mean? You know, and it goes on and on and on. You know, and they gaslight you, so they can't. They can't gaslight me. You know what I mean? They can't gaslight me. They can't do anything with me. Do you know what I mean? I am loved by people, my family, and everything else. Do you know what I mean? I'm loved enough. Do you know what I mean? I love myself, let alone anything else. They hate me. Good. I don't care. You're Freemason perverts that shag animals, yeah, have sex with your own kids, you shag your own brother-in-laws behind your wife's backs, you know what I mean, in gay relationships. Oh, there's so much I've got on you guys, you know what I mean? And you sit there like you're fucking legends. Yeah, right. But I'm telling you now, if you're listening to this and you've got a boyfriend that's a Freemason, use a recorder on him. And listen to him, yeah, record their conversations. You'll soon catch them out. Do you know what I mean? Start bugging your boyfriends, and then you'll really see what you're going out with. But anyway, shh, keep that quiet. They don't want that happening, do they? But anyway, pause that. And like I said, they always think they'll never get caught. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing. That's why I've got 45 years of fucking shit on them. Do you know what I mean? Because they never think to get caught. They never think you're listening, or you've got the brains to actually record them. You know, they just think you're dumb and stupid because there's so many of them. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, you know, if the table was like, if I had a table, yeah, there wouldn't be one pervert. There'd be a whole gang of perverts. And I'm talking 45 to 60 men that are Freemasons. Most of them, yeah, that some of them don't even know or even give a shit because they're paid anyway. Do you know what I mean? That's all manipulation by the same clan of people that have had the fucking grip, a Masonic hand grip on this town for centuries and decades. Do you know what I mean? And them handshakes come from winning battles and fights and everything else. Do you know what I mean? But again, like I said, that's, you know, their castles. The castles, what you see, like say Borough Castle, you know, all the Norman castles, all them castles, they used to be the Masonic lodges. You see what I mean? And they bashed all the peasants off the land, took their goats, took their sheep. Do you know what I mean? They don't want you knowing this history. Do you see what I mean? They don't want you knowing that. But now, what they do, they got Masonic lodges that are nice little buildings. They're doing all this lovely charity. Do you know what I mean? But they got all the money. They got everything. You know what I mean? And you sit in your homes, in your Masonic cubes, yeah? What they've specially made for you to keep sitting there like profane little people while they're celebrating wine. You know, look at my videos, I show you. They eat well, they drink well, they dance merry, and they have great times. But they've got certain people looking after their best interests, and it's all criminalised for them, to benefit them, to make sure you get nowhere, you get no businesses, you no rise up to anything. As long as you're the slave labour, you're okay. But anyway, read that, like I said. And we've got another one here, look. I just want to show these just before we get to the video where I left, which was here from part 1. Yeah, I just wanted to show these clips here, yeah. And then once I get down to there, I think I've shown them ones before, do you know what I mean? But who knows? But like I said, if you ever come, if you ever come to Great Yarmouth, you know what I mean. Come and see the travelling G Traplet. Come and see the G Travellers, the Knights Templars. You know what I mean. They run all that real estate behind there. Look, you see the pyramids. Look, see black and white pyramids. 3 of them. Look, why does it go in 3s? I wonder why. Can't be nothing Masonic, surely. And all the windows are 6 and 6. Oh, all that bollocks. You know what I mean. But they won't say nothing to you. You know what I mean? They won't tell you that. That's where this is where I show you they don't like that, Things to do in Great Yarmouth, fucking leave. Because the Freemason scumbags that run this town, they run it all, the police, the NRL, or fucking all of that, the ambulances, the hospital, they run it all. There ain't nowhere I ain't been gang-stalked by these perverts in authority, hiding their Masonic aprons behind uniforms, suits, and fucking whatever else. I know my enemy. Anyway, let's go back to here. See, look, I face entrapment nearly every day in every state by state, yeah? And the reason is because in every state there's a Masonic lodge. Do you know what I mean? And that's what it goes about. Again, it goes to the cops, the black ops. It goes to the cops here with my gang stalking, everything. Probation. I've had, all sorts of people do different funny little things with me, yeah? In all cases and in scenarios, whether it's been the police, probation officers, social services, fucking hell, you name it, I've seen it. Do you know what I mean? It's there, and it's all the way through most of my videos. Do you know what I mean? Where they've been corrupted by the Masonic Freakmasons, and you've got this, like I said, what you've actually got in each town and city, because they want you thinking about the world. They don't want you thinking there's a cabal within your town. You know what I mean? A cabalistic families, yeah. And they are families that go back centuries and decades, and they've had funny handshakes with the lords, the dukes, and the earls, yeah. And they've been looking after them for fucking decades, yeah. And they don't want you realising that. They want you keep looking at Mr. fucking Trump or Keir Starmer or your local MP or whatever, you know what I mean? But it's actually families that are corrupt, yeah. Just like fucking Al Capone, yeah. He had soup kitchens. He was a hero because he had soup kitchens. But all the murders and the drug dealing and the barons and all the fucking rest of it, even oh God, if you research, that's what I'm saying, you just got to research and look into the criminals. I'll deal with the criminals, like, I'll show you what I mean. You just got to watch, the podcasts. They tell you who runs your towns, who runs your cities. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that's that one. And then we've done this one, yeah? And then we've got this one, that the question that no one ever asks, yeah? She avoided jail. She was sentenced to 200 hours unpaid work. And then she was allowed to return to work. Now, the question that everyone should ask is she a Masonic Eastern Star? Do you know what I mean? What information has she got to keep her fucking job? Because the first thing that came out of her mouth is, if I'm going down, you're all coming with me. Because it all works on blackmail. Do you know what I mean? Crazy. But anyway, what do I know? I'm too profane. Again, look. Read this, look. Now, this is again, look. Police in the city of Kabwe, yeah, the provisional capital of central blah, 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 whatever, yeah. Now, look what happens here, look. See, every Freemason, right, lodge, right, and the chapters within has a complete skeleton, human remains, yeah, which is against the law in the UK, I might add. Maybe we should storm London, Uggle, or whatever the fuck it is, and most of the other ones in our towns and cities, and see who's get these human, these skeletons buried in a proper Christian burial. Do you know what I mean? Or if we can DNA them and see if they were actually murdered. Get DNA, get the mind you, non-Masonic pathologists and all of that. Do you know what I mean? Working on them to see if they were actually murdered or a crime was committed on these human skeletons. Do you know what I mean? But what do I know? I'm too profane. But we should have to see if all these human remains, yeah, where they come from. In every Masonic lodge, they have a skeleton, yeah. They have a skull, they have body parts. We should have every Masonic lodge should be forensically examined, yeah, with the old spray, and then put the old infrared light on it and all of that, and just see how much sex has gone on there, how many murders have happened within the Masonic Lodge. Do you know what I mean? Every one of them. Do you know what I mean? Forensically fucking examined to see what sort of crimes are being committed within Masonic lodges. But anyway, what do I know? Shh, you're not allowed to say that, because that's really going to get you killed, you know what I mean? Because that'll never happen anyway, because they control all that fucking top echelon, do you see what I mean? And they close it down. But the real, you know, obviously you can pause this and do it yourself, but the real thing here, yeah, right, is this, look, because the Freemason community in Zambia threatened their Frederick administration that they would bring down the government, you see, if police didn't stop the investigation, was the Inspector General of Police at the time, and he was given instructions by government to order the police in Kabul to stop investigation. And that's what you're dealing with today in any type of investigation, yeah? They shut it down, yeah, and you obey in all your towns and cities, regardless of what it is. You know what I mean? They want you having that special thingy, you know what I mean, and locking you down. The people who are locking you down or giving you that special thing are the Freemasons. It's their agenda in every town and city. You know what I mean? You control nothing. And if you did, you'd be assassinated within seconds and minutes to shush you up, because that's what they do. They control the shush-ups. Yeah? You know what I mean? And this is how they do it. They control the town. Take your towns, take your cities back from these Freemasons, yeah? Oust them out of power, yeah? And everything will be okay. Do you know what I mean? Because everything will fall into place, because they can't communicate with themselves then. They can't keep shutting investigations down. Do you know what I mean? From the higher echelons. But they can. They, you know, look back at the Russian Tsars, the family that got killed, the royals and all of that. This is what they do. They can take away governments. They can do anything they want. Yeah, but they put it all under different names and call it civil wars and things like that. Do you know what I mean? When they want to wipe, and when the civil war hits in the UK, the little Freemasons, yeah, that are the shooters and the assassins for the Freemasons, will have hit lists, yeah, and the first place they're going to come looking for me. Yeah, and they're going to kill me. I wouldn't survive a civil war in the UK, and neither will you if you're a truther speaking out. I'm telling you now, you will not survive, because they've already got the hit lists written up. They know where you are and where you go and everything else, yeah? Because they're running your community, and like I said, you're all registered on the fucking, you know, at their Masonic town hall, yeah? All your names are all on the registry and then on the polls, do you know what I mean? And you're targeted, believe it, you are targeted. And when it kicks off, they're going to send hit squads to quieten and shush up anyone who's a threat to their authority, the Freemasons, do you know what I mean? But I don't think they can shush it up this time. Well, I'm hoping they can't, you know what I mean? Because, like I said, there's just too much people waking up now to their scummy existence. Again, it's, you know, gangstalking, a violation of the human rights. Again, you can pause it and read it again, you know what I mean? Because I am dealing with a conspiracy, yeah, you know what I mean, to commit torture on me, to, you know, to make my life shit, basically. Do you know what I mean? They've been doing that for 45 years, do you know what I mean? And I'll tell you, from all walks of life, it doesn't matter if it's a prison officer, a fucking a policeman, a judge, or one of them bailiffs up in the court. Do you know what I mean? All these people are all connected. Do you know what I mean? Going down King Street together, you know, like, yeah, like it's fucking nothing. You know what I mean? Going on nights out, and I'm thinking, fuck, you're all together. The prison officer, a freaking policeman, and a bloody, do you see what I mean? And gangster, you know, a drug dealer, drug lord, fucking hell, all standing together, toe to toe, you know what I mean? Having a night out. How wonderful. Now look, this is what community gangstalking is here, yeah? This woman here, don't know what she's done, don't know what her crime is, don't know anything, but the main community of this, the leaders, which will be the Freemasons, are getting them to stone her. Do you see what I mean? This is what they do. Do you know what I mean? They get people to gang stalk on you, you know, like the witchfinder generals that were all Freemasons. You see what I mean? And they went, that's a witch. And they point to anyone and everyone believe it. You know what I mean? And they're getting women burnt at the stake, and men that were warlocks, yeah? Anyone that was a threat. If they wanted that man's wife, how can I get to shag his wife? I know, I'll accuse him of being a witch. They'll kill him, and then she's left in the stirch. Do you know what I mean? I'll come along because I've got my Masonic money, you know, what they give me, and I can get her. Do you see what I mean? You know, and they picked and choose who they want. You know, another Freemason go, I fancy her. How can I get to her? Can you accuse him of witchcraft? And then what happens? He got rid of him. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's what they do today, all the time. You know what I mean? You know, they cause division for people because what they do, they have affairs. You know, and I'm talking about male or female, you know, whichever way round you want to put it, they do it. You know what I mean? It don't matter if you're man or female. Do you know what I mean? If a female fancies a man, then they'll do it the other way, you know. But back in the day when they were the witchfinder generals, if a woman wouldn't sleep with them, they'd burn them at the stake. You know what I mean? You better sleep with me or I'm going to accuse you of witchcraft and you're going to get burned at the stake. And that's what they did. And this is what they're doing to this poor woman. She's being harassed and gang stalked by her community because the leaders have said something about her. Watch. This is in India, by the way. And look at the size of them bricks they're throwing. Do you think this is normal? Oh. Oh yeah, she has a sword, but she also has a child with her. Do you know what I mean? So you imagine it, if a horde of people like this, yeah, right, are willing to throw bricks at a woman and a child, yeah, do you know what I mean? This has gone through history. You remember, you know, these people used to throw babies on fires and God knows what, you know what I mean? And because they were kings, queens, lords, dukes or earls, and the people and their gang below them looked after them, they've always had the narrative on your communities, always. And what goes, goes, do you know what I mean? And they just don't like it if you wake up and you point to them and you say, you're a fucking disgusting person that's bum stretching this and bum stretching that. They don't like it. Right, anyway, let's carry on. Oh.
जो भाई सब अपना देखोगा सुरबंगार सुरबंगार देखो गुरुजी अपना जो है देखो गुरुजी बंगार देखोगा अपना तारे को गुरबंगो तारे को गुरुजी देखोगा अपना सब भाई देखोगा तारे को गुरबंगो देखोगा देखोगा Sudah keluar bangga, sudah keluar. Sudah keluar.
Now, I don't know if you noticed there, one guy giving the order, look, for them to stop, look. Here he is. Can you see him there? Look, watch, look. Go away. See, look, two. And they run away, look. See? And this is what happens. You get leaders that are strong and powerful, and I've shown them in many of my videos, yeah. They're your doormen, yeah. And they control the drugs trades on your doors, pubs and clubs, yeah. Again, I'll get more, you know, I've done that through my videos anyway, but they're the strong leaders within your community and they roast these people up. Do you know what I mean? And this is what you're dealing with within your communities today. They decide who's accepted and who's not. I mean, you don't see anyone doing this to it. I mean, imagine if that was a drug dealer's house. How many drug dealers would you have in your community? Do you know what I mean? If you all got together and attacked the drug dealers. Shh, you mustn't say that though, because they're paid and protected. And if you do the research, you'll find they're paid and protected, yeah? They're actually paying for protection. Can you believe that? The dealers are paying for protection to not be fucking ganged up on or attacked by those people who are strong within your community. Do you know what I mean? They pay a lot of money for their protection to deal drugs to your children. But anyway, what do I know? Shh, don't say too much. You know what I mean? You can't say nothing about it. But anyway, again, look at this. Look, it's an old picture of Yarmouth, look, yeah? Guy, this is Mill Road, Cobham, yeah? The original pig shit island where it was built, you know, before Great Yarmouth was ever built or anywhere else. This is where this is where the original builders, you know, the merchants, the real freak masons that built everything. But what can you see? Look, in 1897, see that building there? Look, what's that? Can you see the square and compasses going along there? Look. See how it sits on that Masonic cube? Look, you see. So who do you think still owns this? Like the wines and the spirits? Eh? See the symbolism? Eh? Who do you think still owns that in Cobham? Do you think a profane person owns that? Same as here, look. See the symbolism? Can you see it? If you watch enough of my videos, you know it. Don't have to tell you. But who do you think owns and controls that? See it on top of the post, look? See on top of the post, the ball, look? The Masonic... That's a real man. I think it's even got a spike on top of it. But what do I know? Do you know what I mean? That's a telegraph pole, look. And on top of it, it's got the world domination ball, which is a bit like this here. You see, it's got the world domination ball, look. You see, it's got the spike, the domination ball, and then a square by the look of it round the world domination ball, you see. And that square sits on that other square, or they're diamonds, whatever. But that gives you the, which you can't mention, you know what I mean? But who do you think still owns these buildings? Do you think someone profane that was cutting up fish? You know, no, these are the Freakmasons, look. The pig owners, the bicycle, you know what I mean? The penny farthing and the cart there. See, they're the owners, they're the Freakmasons. They've been there for centuries and decades. The same people, yeah, forever. They run it all. They bought it and done it all. It's willed down by nepotism, yeah? And that goes back to 18 odd, like I said. Look, oh yeah, we laugh at, we did Cecil Bear, didn't we? Well, another thing I said on my last video, no one's stepped up yet. But like I said, if you we got a table set up ready for these gang stalkers, yeah? And because we can deal with all the, like the perversions and the raping and the nonsense and everything else, yeah? And when we're done with that, then we can deal with the drug dealers, can't we? You know what I mean? Who is dealing drugs within our community? Who are the businesses? What businesses do they run? What interests? You know, where does it all lead to? What families? Do you see what I mean? And that's what the key questions they don't want you asking. Do you know what I mean? Because if you start asking questions like that within your community, yeah, who is making our lives shit because they're robbing us and stealing from us, yeah, and who's benefiting it? Where's the money flowing to? Yeah. That's what gets you into trouble, you see, and then they gang stalk you and make you a perjured individual. You know what I mean? But anyway, what do I know? I mean, this is like Cecil here that hides behind the Masonic apron is hidden behind the bum. You see what I mean? Silly fucking. But these are, look, see, once you do the research, make myself a coffee. Once you do the research, you'll find that the Freakmasons, and again I've shown you this, I believe, the castles were the Masonic lodges, you see, so they were the Knights Templars and all of that bollocks, yeah, and they protect the lords, the dukes and the earls, you see. It's always been the same, and they nick your sheep, you know what I mean? Who do you think's profane here? The builders, look, you know what I mean, the profane builders, but the foreman would be a top Freakmason, making sure that all gets stuck together properly. I mean, but this is what they are. These are the Masonic lodges back in the day. You know, that's why you put that. Look, you are the biggest joke in the country. Yeah, right. Look at your Masonic lodges. You just didn't like me telling everyone their castles, which they were, you know. And then the knights come out, kill the peasants, we'll take your land, because they got a big army. You see what I mean? Like today, they got big armies, yeah, and I can prove that they're a big army. You know, it's in my videos already, but I'll do a part 3 of this, and I'll show you. You know, they control your towns, they control your cities. Look, I think I did this one as well last week. Look, just found this out with my the gas pipes have been cut. You see, this was another thing they do. They cut your gas pipes, hoping to harm you. You know, this is the thing they do. They come round and burn your house out. You know, or burn your car, any property you've got. They try and, you know, like I said, I've took my cars in, right. I think I mentioned this in the last video. You know, you take your car to the garage and it'll come up with faults, do you know what I mean? So it costs you money all the time, you know what I mean? And they laugh, you know, they go, oh, he'll be back, because he's, you know what I mean? And I'll show you what they did to my registration again in part 1. You know, they do all that. Like at the moment, right, I'm getting a like this dry throat thing, yeah, because I think they've done something to my car. And as I'm driving, that's coming into my, you know, my living compartment in my car, yeah, and it's making my throat like, you know, and I never cough because I don't smoke, I don't drink, don't do drugs or anything like that. But I'm getting this throat thing, do you know what I mean? Either that, or there's something on my handles, and I wash them anyway. They put some poison or something on my handles, you know what I mean? So when I'm putting because you always put your fingers to your mouth, do you know what I mean? So they're getting me something to do with my throat anyway. But this is the type of thing they do, you know. They come round and they damage your property, you know, so it'll harm you. And I've talked, you know, I did talk about I think in my last video, where they can put, you know, asbestos in your, you know, in your car. What's that called? Your car bloody heating system or whatever, you know what I mean? So when it's running, it's blowing straight into your lungs, innit? You know, things like that. Anyway, my profane friends, yeah, things to avoid in Great Yarmouth. The G travellers, who are Knights Templars, you know what I mean? You know, things to do in Great Yarmouth, leave, because it's just full of scummy freak masons that are making people perjured individuals, you know what I mean? What do I know? So anyway, we've got up to this video here, and now we carry on. Okay, my profane friends? Right. Again, look, this is a victim of gangstalking, yeah? Look, frame me as a pervert while she watched me on hidden cameras and catfished me online. She will go to prison. You see? And this is what they do to people. You know what I mean? See? She framed me as a pervert, so they decimated her fucking name, yeah? While she watched me on hidden cameras, and they will take hidden cameras into your house, yeah, because like I said, they like hiding their Masonic apron behind uniforms, yeah? So they'll come round as the gas board or some other type of fucking person, yeah? Knowing they're going to get away with it. There's never going to be an investigation, yeah? And they'll put listening devices in your house. Anyway, what do I know? I'm too profane. Right, here we go, my profane friends. Listen.
All one giant Ponzi scheme that they're trying to recruit people after years to point the finger at you. And it's like, we're just giving one finger back, right?
You see what I mean? And this is what I mean. Scapegoat, years of covert torture. And that's what they do. They covertly torture you, making silly little comments to you or others, trying to recruit people. You know, you go to like, you know, it doesn't matter, you join a group or something, you know, or whatever. They're there recruiting other people to talk about you to other people, and the other people don't even know or nothing. They don't do no research on you. They just pick up that spiel and roll with it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But like I said, any pervert out there who's a freak mason would like to come and set up the table. You know, any victims, bring your children who are supposed to have raped or molested. Bring your children, you know, whatever. And let's get up the table. Like I said, we'll deal with all the perversion and the nonsense and the raping and all of that. When we've dealt with all of that, then we'll go after the drug dealers, shall we? Yeah, let's look at who the drug dealers are. We'll start researching who they are. because that's where it all leads to. You see what I mean? The drug dealers, the gangs, yeah, that are within your community, the families, the certain families that control the narrative. You know what I mean? Because they got the strength and the power from the nepotism, you know, because they run a pub. Yeah, and they're like back in the day, say, like, you know, I used to see these people, I used to go, oh, yeah, respectable, you know what I mean? Good, you know what I mean? But the only respect I gave them was because they owned a pub. You know what I mean? Who's a fucking wanker, really? Do you know what I mean? The wankers. Do you know what I mean? But their father before them was a Freemason, and they go down that line, you know, whether that's boxing or whatever. It's the same old, like I said, everything is habitual, yeah? And you can see it in your communities. And now you've got the third and the fourth generation of youngsters coming up in the same fucking, God knows whatever it's called, agenda, yeah, what their fathers did now. You know what I mean? And you know, obviously a lot of them are passed, some have passed away now. You know, I remember their dads, blah, blah, and they passed. But the point is they're doing the same thing as what their dad did. Do you see what I mean? Then it gets that generational curse. You know what I mean? If you want to call it that. You know, and this is what they're doing all the time.
Gangstalking is a huge organized crime like human trafficking. It is a well-oiled machine. These people have been doing this for a very long time. I am not the first who has endured this torture and terror.
And they've been doing it for a very, very long time because it's generational. They know how to do it. And anyone that speaks up or against them, yeah, they're going to come for you, yeah, and they're going to decimate your character. They're going to decimate your life, whether it's financially, work-wise, or, you know, just like you being with your wife, they're going to send someone in to seduce her. Do you see what I mean? And shit like that, or vice versa. You know what I mean? They're going to wreck your life if you're not a Freemason. So be careful who you're letting into your life, because if they're Freemasons, they got an agenda either to, one, try and make you piss poor, two, take your wife away or your husband, yeah, and there's always that agenda, but it's all about the divide. You know what I mean? They don't want unity within communities, because unity, when people look, yeah, and they start seeing who's actually corrupt, and they're the ones who are like fucking Jimmy Savile, yeah, we're doing charity, we're fucking building this, or we're putting this, you know what I mean? It may be Mr. Smith, it may be Mr. Jones, but it's Mr. Masonic Jones, Mr. Masonic Smith, who's bum stretching kids within the Masonic Lodge, raping people and all the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? Oh, yeah, baby. Keep your eye on them.
To answer the question as to why the government would assign people to monitor your life as early as your birth is because some of you have genetic inclinations to not follow orders, and this can be disruptive to society if you say don't want to go to school or don't.
Well, that's me, you see, but there's also another thing about me. Again, like I said, I pick these things up and I remember stuff. And I remember this guy, yeah, he's a Freemason, right? He specifically come to me and he said, let me look at your hands, right? And he looked at both my hands. Didn't know why he did at the particular time, you know, but I've been down a few rabbit holes now and I know why he did that. I'm going to wait till the next video, though, and I'll show you, yeah? And like I said, I always remember my shit. But next time I do a video, yeah, it'll be a part 3 anyway, I think. But I'll show you why he wanted to see my hands, yeah? And I think that's why I've never been recruited by the Freemasons and why I'm a perjured individual, blah, blah, blah. But there's other reasons as well. Like I said, you can offend a king or a queen, yeah, within your community, yeah, because there's kings and queens within your community, believe it or not, okay? Or you've gone with one of their goddesses, like you slept with one of their goddesses and they take an offence to that, you know, or you slept with someone's daughter, right? But the daughter happens to be the man's, you know, her dad or stepdad or whoever, whatever, is in a relationship with her, do you know what I mean? Or wants to be in a relationship with her and is jealous because he's not in a relationship with her. Do you see what I mean? So they'll, you know, all of that comes into it. Do you see what I mean? You know, you're sleeping with, you get with someone and the dad hates you. You get with a woman and the dad hates you. Question why. Is it because you're in love with your fucking, you know, is he in love with your girlfriend or wife or whatever? Do you see what I mean? You know, talk about it to your wife or your girlfriend. You know what I mean? Why is your dad like that? Are you sleeping with him? You know, ask him. You know what I mean? It's not a joke. It's a fucking fact, mate. You know what I mean? And that's why they can come after you, because you're sleeping. Yeah, because the father is using her as like the Asher, or she's a blood. I can't remember the bloody names now. But there's certain gods within the Masonic lodge, yeah, and they use their women, yeah, their girls or their daughters as goddesses, yeah, and holy virgins and all this sort of crap or whatever they do. You know what I mean? But when you sleep with them, yeah, the father, who's a worshipful master or grandmaster or mastermate, whatever, you know what I mean, will be offended by that. Do you know what I mean? Because you're sleeping with his girlfriend or you're sleeping with a goddess. Do you know what I mean? Because in their lodge, you can't defile because you're without the temple. You see what I mean? You're not part of their club. You're without the temple. You're a profane peasant and you're defiling my daughter. You know what I mean? Apart from me going out with her anyway, and I'm sleeping with her and all the rest of it, you're defiling my reputation type thing. Do you know what I mean? So just be careful who you get with. You know what I mean?
Want to get a job. You might have noticed that when you were younger, if you were more charismatic, maybe you were able to make friends very easily, make people laugh, you might have found yourself getting punished unprovoked for no reason. And this is to deter you from these actions that are disruptive, because then you will encourage other people to follow you in this disruptive behavior. And so they're trying to use these groups of people to sort of peer pressure you into not performing certain behaviors. They might suggest that you get a job or go to school or file certain paperwork. And if you say don't want to apply for a job and you keep turning down offers, they will start offering you better deals. You'll start to get job offers from numbers that you don't recognize, emails that you don't recognize, offering to pay you more. They're essentially trying to give you a toy to play with to keep you distracted.
And that is the key, distracting you. You know what I mean? Because I was always, like making people laugh, having a joke, having a fun, blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to go too much into what's what type thing. But like I said, I never followed the crowd. You know what I mean? I didn't respect anyone who was doing drugs. I didn't join any gang. You know what I mean? I didn't need to join any gang. I was just me. Do you know what I mean? And that was it. I didn't follow anyone. Do you know what I mean? And there's plenty of my other friends that didn't follow neither. But, we're all perjured individuals. But that's another story. But the point of the matter is that is me. Do you know what I mean? What he's talking about is me. Do you know what I mean? That's me. I would be the clown of the class or whatever. I'd have a laugh with people, blah, 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 But everyone, and they know who they are, were turned to turn against me. Do you know what I mean? Or whatever, in every way, shape or form. Do you know what I mean? By these drug lords, G-travelling Templars, do you know what I mean? And they've been running this town ever since. Do you know what I mean? It don't matter what they do, what they say. You know what I mean? They got no accountability.
A lot of celebrities, musicians, a lot of famous people, they actually fall under this genetic inclination. And so they are given a platform as a sort of outlet for them to funnel this disruptive energy. And it's turned into a product to be marketed to people, because if they left you alone too long, you would start to actually assemble more people to follow suit. So by isolating you and putting you on this pedestal, it separates you from the group, and that allows them to single you out and preventing you from influencing other people directly with your behavior.
And that's why they don't want me teaching you about Masonic 323, Masonic 232, or the triple cross or the double cross. You know what I mean? Look them up on my videos, and you'll see, they don't want me teaching you about the Masonic symbolism in your towns. Like all the post offices belong to the Freemasons, all the leases of the shops belong to the Freemasons, all the businesses are run by the Freemasons, and you ain't getting a business unless you are a Freemason. You know what I mean? And like your fucking dream reality that the house you own is going to be your own because it's the mortgage that you get and pay for. You know what I mean? No, they want you to keep enslaved in your little Masonic cube, yeah, of Satan. I mean Saturn, yeah, where you're paying a fucking mortgage for the rest of your life and you're in enslavement and have to work. Do you know what I mean? They want you stacking shelves in Tesco's and Aldi and Lidl and all that. But you start trying to get jobs being a singer, you know, all of that malarkey, you ain't getting there, mate. You know what I mean? The people who make successful footballers and everything else, you look at any of them, they're all related to lords, dukes and earls and barons. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's what you got to look into. And then when you see that and the protection that surrounds them, and I'm on about G Traveller, fucking kings and queens, not just the king and queen, you know, of all sorts of certain countries. I'm on about other kings and queens, yeah, that you don't even know about, which I will address in this video or possibly in number 3. Yeah, there's kings and queens, yeah, which I've done in which is in my other videos anyway, so it should give you another idea. But these kings and queens, yeah. Oh, should I go into it now? No, I won't. I'll go for the next one. But these kings and queens, yeah, it's like a Game of Thrones, yeah. Okay, you've got land travelers, yeah. You've got water travelers. Do you see what I mean? And then you've got other travelers, you know, and you've got, you know, stone travelers and all of that, yeah. But once you start researching it and getting into it, it opens you up to who's who and what's what within your communities that you don't know about. You know what I mean? Like you explore a rugby club, you know, as one twat. Maybe he'll step up. You know, he's on. I was just like one time Marine Parade, you know, filming that. What an idiot! Used it even, you know, even as private plate, but that's another story. But you know, maybe he'll step up and oust me out. You know, he'll do it. You know, or maybe there's Carlos. You know, another one. You know, who's like 500 yards from him. Like, you know what I mean? The other dude. You know what I mean? But in different times, obviously. But you know, like say Carlos. You know, he was like fucking. You know, he's trying to pay someone to come over and smack me in the mouth. Do you know what I mean? Why didn't you do it, Carlos? You're the powerhouse. Do you know what I mean? Come out and oust me. Get on the video. But he won't. You know what I mean? Because he's a crime lord. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And his community, again, I don't know if he's connected to the king or the queen, or he's working, not the king and the queen. I'm on about fucking that run this country or whatever. I'm on about certain other kings and queens that you have no idea that exist within your communities. Yeah. All right. But anyway, I'll get into that soon. But, you know, you got like him trying to pay someone to smack me in the mouth, you know. And then another time, you know, another group, I'm sitting in the pub, and this isn't local to Great Yarmouth, this is another place, you know. I won't say nothing, but they, you know, again, the guy, you go, why didn't he come up, you know, blatant as part, you know, like I said, I've got it on record. He's go, why doesn't he get out off his ass and come up here and smack him in the mouth? Do you know what I mean? You know, what the fuck, you know, and they're in the pub, like, you know, looking through the hole, you know, at me in the, like, the lounge type thing, you know. But that was when I went to Skegness, let's put it that way, yeah. Yeah, the Skegness gang stalkers there, you know, again, part of the drug kingpin fucking whatever, but that's how they're connected through towns and cities, and they are, you know, they're in every town and city, these kings, queens, lords, dukes and earls, you know what I mean, from the Masonic Lodge. But anyway, what do I know?
I'm just gonna call a spade, but if you're being targeted or part of a gang stalking program, because I just noticed this, well, I've noticed it for a long time, but you know what I find interesting is like when a lot of people that were around you or you had suspicions about, they all of a sudden have nice cars, all this money, all these assets, like living the good life. It's like, where did all this money come from? You know? Like, trust me, I have some nice things. I went and got some Lululemon stuff because I like to work out, but I mean, my car has been broken so many times. I don't even have heat in my Mazda right now because it just kept getting broken. But like, where are all these people getting all this money to buy all these nice things from? Or like random career advancements. And look, this has nothing to do with,
again, the money, yeah. When you see, like I said, I'll go on about the Jeeps that have followed me with their blacked out windows, you know, the Audi A3s, or was it 4s or 6s? I can't remember. There's been so many, you know, in different towns, obviously. I'm not just talking about this town. But, you know, it's the same repetitive. They cannot change their narrative. They cannot change their own shit. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I remember going into, where was that? I can't remember now, but a pocked-faced geezer, I can't remember his name now, but I've been to jail with him and everything, but he stood there waiting for me, do you know what I mean, on the side of the road. Obviously they had GPS on me and that, which they did, they had it taped under my van, you know. But, they can't help themselves. They just carry on doing it and doing it and doing it, But he didn't know I got him on camera and all, just stand on the side of the road. Why would a random from Great Yarmouth be down in, I can't remember where I was, you know what I mean? It might have been, Western Supermare, But the guy there, what followed me there, and then I had one go all over, right up into the north of Scotland, as I've told you before, to everywhere, Western Supermare, Bristol, a fat freak mason, like he needed a tummy tuck or something. You know what I mean? Go, well, that was easy to find him. Do you know what I mean? Because I was easy to find. I was dragging a trolley. But, there's like 4 or 5 people around him. Do you see what I mean? The fat twat wouldn't have said nothing if he was on his own. But because he had his protection around him and his brothers to back him up, you see what I mean? That's what they do. They're always a gang. You see what I mean? He would have never have said nothing or done anything. Do you see what I mean? Because he wouldn't do it on his own. They have to do it because they need their protection. You know what I mean? Like I said, perverts flock together, you know what I mean? I'm an eagle, man. I fly alone, you know what I mean? I'm an eagle. Oh, baby. But, but it's just, they're just gang stalking, drug dealing perverts, do you know what I mean? When you look into them of who they are, they're kings and queens, lords, dukes and earls, and they're travelling Templars and all of that. But anyway, let's go on.
Jealousy. I'm happy for people. I'm happy. I'm not jealous about anything. Truthfully, I've actually never been a jealous person, but that's just because I'm not materialistic or competitive. But I am gonna call it out if people are all of a sudden acquiring things due to, I don't know, bullying someone. Doing illegal stuff. 144 license plate. Can't even make. I wish I got that. Anyways, that's funny. I wish I got that. I had to get the license plate. That's a confirmation. Anyways, and the reason why I brought this up, because I brought my condo being...
Wait there, let me just go back there. What did that say on there? That in GYPY, is it? Gypsy 144. Oh, you never know, do you? Eh? Ad. What does ad mean? But anyway, like I said, see, she's noticing the patterns, and the patterns are always the same. Nothing changes, like I said. And you've got to look at people in your community and you go, where does all that wealth come from? Why are you driving that particular car? Where do your money come from? I mean, you're only fucking, 25? And you're driving like a £35,000 car? What the fuck? Let's think about it, you know what I mean? Anyway, let's listen to what she's got to say.
License plate. That's a confirmation. Anyways, and the reason why I brought this up, because I brought my condo being weird last night, and there's so many things going on in my condo and surrounding condos, but I was just about to get in my car, and one thing I do before I go is I sit and pray, and be like, anyways, just for protection. And when you feel someone staring at you? So I look over and I see one of the people I know, I'm convinced is in the program in my condo. She's just standing there, not in her car, just standing staring at me, giving me a dirty look. And she has a nice new car now.
And that's the thing, like I said, they're paid well because they got all the money. You know what I mean? They got all the money, they own all the buildings. Money is nothing to them. And I'll show you again in a video in a minute. The money means nothing to these people. Absolutely nothing. And I'll show you in the video in a minute. Right, what we got here? Let's have a look. Oh. Yeah, emotional outbursts or physical reactions that can be used against you. And this is what they want to do. They want you to, when I hear a comment or something, they're trying to get an emotional outburst from me. Because then it's me who's the aggressor. It's me who's, trying to, incite trouble or whatever the fuck it is. So when you're arrested, they've got 3 or 4 persons making statements against you. So how do you, look at me now, and there's 5 people there, say a shop owner, a friggin' whoever they pull in anyway, it doesn't matter. How does my statement stand up to them 4 people? Do you see what I mean? Yeah. And they're not connected to me, except they're connected through the Masonic Lodge. But they don't say that in the fucking statement. Do you know what I mean? But I'll be, that's what I would be asking anyway. Do you know what I mean? Now. But back in the day, no, I wouldn't be saying that. But that's the thing, innit? You see what I mean? So when these statements, you go up against 5 or 6 people, or as many as they decide, what are you going to do about it? You can't. You can't do nothing, because then you've got the police backing them up. You see what I mean? Because they're part of that, hiding that Masonic apron. You see what I mean? So you've got 4 civilians hiding Masonic aprons. You've then got the police hiding their Masonic aprons. Yeah, that will enforce what they're saying, just enough to fuck you up and put you in jail, because the judge will be hiding his Masonic apron, even though he's a Masonic shop owner that owns the grocery store. You know what I mean? Crazy. Or the fruit and veg, whatever you want. You know what I mean? Because they're your magistrates, yeah, that come from the Masonic Lodge. They're your business owners, and they decide and they're told exactly what to do with you. So how do I stand up against that? Do you see what I mean? And inquire, you know what I mean? I stand no chance, because that Masonic apron, again, is using uniforms of authority to be used corruptly against me. You see what I mean? It's how they use you. How they use the system of Freemasonry. Oh, baby. Anyway, I'll let you read that. Okay? Look, if you are being harassed, stalked, cyberbullied, hijacked, or otherwise attacked, protect yourself, collect evidence, document, and notify the authorities. I won't notify the authorities. I won't. I don't need to. You know what I mean? But if I am murdered, I'm relying on you guys, the conspiracy theorists, the truthers, to investigate my death. Don't worry, I've got enough videos to show you who's fucking who, the perverts, the rapist, the nonces, and everything else. You know what I mean? But anyway, again, just pause that piece and you can go through it yourselves. Again, here it is, look. And trust me, the church here, right, the Minster, yeah, again, if you go into the Minster, you'll see the Masonic slates, yeah, where they're fucking donated. Prince Charles is at the top, or the King Charles. The organ has got all Masonic symbolism over it, yeah. And then on the pews, you've got the Royal Order, the Royal Arch Freemason stamp, which has tried to be erased, yeah, that's in my videos. And then you've got, beside that, on the same pew, yeah, the Royal Order of Druids, yeah. And you'll find that the Druids, the Royal Arch, the Freemasons, and the G-Traveling Templars all have a commonality within that church. Do you see what I mean? That Minster that runs this community, yeah, have a big say on what goes on in this community. And you can see the heraldry all around the wall, the shields, the family names. Do you see what I mean? And that's what I'm saying. That's what you've got to look into, to what runs your town. And you'll find they're the most corrupt people you'll ever meet in life. You know what I mean? So long as they're self-servant to themselves, getting all the money, and everyone else is a profane peasant, everything's okay. But anyway, what do I know? But here we go, look. As seen by liars, jealous haters, so you need your reactions to match what they are saying. They go so far as orchestrate scenarios, set up incidents or accidents to manufacture proof of their allegations. You see what I mean? So I'm saying to them now, come with your proof, with your allegations against me, that I'm a pervert, I'm a rapist, I'm a nonce, or whatever you've got. Videos, because I know you've got videos on me. I know you've took loads of pictures and all the rest of it, but we'll get into that more, in my other videos. But again, come up, sit at the table on the Masonic altar, which is a Masonic cube within the Royal Assembly Rooms, or in the Cliff Hotel. It doesn't really fucking matter to me. Show me all these victims, yeah, all these children I'm supposed to have molested or whatever. And then when we've dealt with all that and you've proved me whatever I am, then we'll talk about the drug dealers, and we can really get our heads together and show people who control the businesses, who's running what, who's controlling what, and had a grip on this fucking town for centuries, yeah? We can do that, can't we? Of course they ain't going to come forward, because you get one person, right, sit there and accuse me. We're going to ask them where that information's come from anyway. And again, in part one, I show you, my acro or whatever the fuck it is. And then, we're going to say, who's your family? Are you related to a Masonic lodge? But you ain't going to get one. They don't come in ones, these people. You know what I mean? They come in two, Jackin and Boaz or Doric. You know what I mean? If it's the three pillars, on the next three levels. You know what I mean? But, but they ain't going to do that. They ain't going to step forward, because like all criminals, they are cowards. They're going to stay hidden behind their Masonic aprons. Do you know what I mean? They ain't going to come forward, because they're all successful businessmen. They got a big following within the community. Yeah, they're running successful businesses. Yeah. Yeah, I ain't going to say no more. But anyway, there you go. Look, smear campaigns. This is what it is. Surviving a smear campaign in 3 steps. This is what this guy's going on about, yeah? If it's not direct, don't respond. If they are failing behind you, talking behind your back, and that's where you need to keep it behind you. Anyone with real concern will address you directly for clarity. Anyone readily believing the lies without your side of the story is because the side they... And again, I'm sorry if it didn't come out, because like I said, the side of the story is because that the side they heard matches how they already feel about you. Be thankful that your campaigners have shown you the frauds in your family. You know what I mean? The church, love life, workplace, blah, blah, blah. And that's what it is. I'll just take that back this way, yeah? And that's what it is. So read it and pause it and just take that on board. Do you know what I mean? But that's what they do. They do a smear campaign against you. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I can't see any of them say, I mean, do you really think the one who's sleeping with his pets, yeah, or bashed his pets, bashed his girlfriends, you know what I mean, mistreated so many people, it's unreal. Do you actually think he's going to sit at that table and accuse me of anything? No. He's going to he's going to put his, I would put, say put his towel between his legs, but, when he's getting a blowy off a dog, you know what I mean? What the fuck? But anyway, that's another story, and then you got, say, another person, I could go on and on and on all of this, that is consistently, I can't go on, it's all in other videos that I've got, yeah. Do you know what I mean? But let's put it this way. You ain't going to get the perverts, the rapists and the nonces that I know, the ones that are having gay relationships behind their wives' backs, all of that, I'm not scared of putting a GPS on a car. Let's put it that way. Do you know what I mean? And seeing where they go, because they're habitual. They keep going to the same places. Do you know what I mean? But again, you can come here, there's nothing here. I don't keep anything in my house for the fucking Masonic police to raid and keep, or any, anything I write or put down, all my evidence goes. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't stay in my house, because I know that's the first thing they'll do. They'll take it, erase it, and it'll be gone. And that ain't ever going to be a possibility for them to ever do. Again, look, Gangstalking initial signs, yeah, part 1. Things will seem oddly coincidental, and they are coincidental. You'll keep, seeing these people turning up with the same faces, and all of that shit, following you around in shops, you know what I mean, and their perverted little faces all the time, you know what I mean, making silly little comments, oh, I know, maybe the guy, let's just go for one dude, yeah, like the one in Tesco's in Caister. How about you turning up, yeah? Who shouted out something, some comment. Why didn't you stand up? Come on, you're a proud citizen. But he won't, because he's a pervert. You see what I mean? He won't stand up. You see what I mean? But he's brave enough to shout a comment in front of everyone and then hide up, of course, with his missus. But he won't stand up. Do you know what I mean? Same as the other guy in the other Tesco's in Yarmouth. Do you know what I mean? Come forward, a G traveller. You come and step up with your girlfriend, do you know what I mean, and oust me out, do you know what I mean, with that funny little name. Tell everyone what you called me, do you know what I mean? One of your gorgeous comments or whatever. No, he won't fucking turn up, because, again, he's another pervert in this town. Another one. It goes on and on and on, these boys, I'll tell you. But there you go. Pause that. You can read that yourselves, okay?
The main thing is, always be aware of your surroundings. Whether it's gang stalking, normal stalking, or just creepy people, always protect yourself. But gang stalking in particular is basically a form of malicious harassment. But there is one other type of gang stalking. the narcissistic, gang-stalking, flying monkeys, also known as flying agents. Now, these are different than the traditional gang stalking or group stalking. Those are more unknown and a lot more elite type of hard to detect what they're. But the flying monkeys would usually be tied back to a narcissist or a narcissistic person, or just a really toxic person that's into manipulating people and getting them to do their dirty work. That's on a whole different spectrum than the typical gang stalking.
And that's where that really comes into it. Because if you've got traveling Templars, yeah, that are drug dealers, yeah, they control fucking everyone. Do you know what I mean? Because their drugs go loads of, they got money. Like I said, how do you go up against the system? Yeah, say it was like Al Capone, yeah. You've got a family like Al Capone, yeah, his gang, or the Cray twins, whatever. They're all on a pension, they're all getting paid. Yeah, they're all running successful businesses. They're all part of, TV shows. And again, I've shown that in some of my videos, but, I've got more hardcore ones that prove all that. Yeah, I think I've got a couple I'm going to show in this video. But they're all connected through all of that system that goes back to the Cray twins. Yeah, and like it's the same as when back in the day of the like the Clayton gang, or all of them gangs, yeah, are still the same today. They're all Masonic. You do the research on them. It was that who robbed trains, the Clantons or whoever, I can't remember now. But if you look into it, yeah, even Tombstone, him there, they're all Freemasons. Do you see what I mean? Yeah, and you're still dealing with that today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. This mic is working good, right? Still, again, I'd like to say thanks for having me, guys. You guys are the best.
See, and when you see this as well, take the names of this TikToks and then join these TikToks, yeah? But again, like I said, gang stalking is the same thing in all towns, in all cities. The people that are actually gang stalking you within your community, I tell you now, they're traveling Templars, yeah, right? They're fucking the ones controlling the drugs, and they're part of a family and a cult that goes back centuries and decades. And they did funny little handshakes on battlefields that if we help you win this war, then you will give us these businesses, we can run successful and all of that shit. You know what I mean?
You went to jail if you know what to do. You create the situation to where they have no choice but to act on their impulse. And once they act on that impulse, then we call that entrapment. We call it a nudge. A nudge. Sometimes you just gotta give them a quick look, just to see what happens, right? How does that happen? You put a post out there, or you have some fake profile say something that triggers, that we know is gonna trigger them, right? Like, we already know your history. If we're to that point, we already know everything about it. So we're like, oh, this will piss them off.
And that's what they keep trying to do to me. They keep trying to trigger me. I'm just making another coffee. But that's what they keep trying to do, trigger me. They say this, like within earshot, all sorts of comments. Let me just move away so the kettle boil. They keep making all sorts of comments. You'll hear it. Like I said, they can't stop themselves. They're that fucking nonsense. It's unreal. But like I said, they're so perverted, evil and disgusting within your community, yeah, these people, yeah, because they're in charge of it, you know what I mean? They're the ones who are doing it. They're the leaders, yeah, and they'll keep people going. And then, like I said, other people pick up on it, yeah, and just do it for nothing. They don't give a fuck, you know what I mean? Like I said, I've got, again, I don't want to say too much because I want them to carry on. If I say everything now, yeah, and I'm getting regular fucking info, yeah, then I don't want to I don't want to mess it up, okay? So let's put it this way. Someone like goes around, yeah, and says stuff all the time, do you know what I mean? Let me just put it that way. But he's not part of their group, do you know what I mean? But he's just like a rabbit, a parrot, you know what I mean? He's parroting what anyone else or everyone else has told him, do you know what I mean? But again, if you pulled him up on it and I fronted him, yeah, which I could do. I'm going to do a video on it anyway, and I'll pull up a few people and I'll show you. But, they'll deny it, and they'll go, no, even though I've got it on camera, I've got it on fucking film, you know what I mean? But they'll deny it. You know, they go, no, 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 you know, and all of this shit. You know what I mean? Because they try and fucking, like I said, when it comes down to exposing them and putting them out in the open, it's, you know, it's mad. But anyway, what do I know? I'm too profane for this, too profane, you know what I mean? But I've been gang stalked and harassed by these people for centuries, do you know what I mean? Decades, centuries, these people have gang stalked this community, you know? There's a lot more, like I said, I've got other videos that I haven't released and ain't gonna release yet, you know what I mean? But whether it'll come to a head and they murder me or not, I don't know. They know, I don't, you know what I mean? I've just got them talking about it, you know what I mean? So anyway, let's listen.
So some of you, depending where you're at on your timeline, and if you're chosen, you know you've been gang stalked and targeted your whole life, or you just knew, you're finding out now, basically, that you were a target of some sort. Like, you're going to find out that people were actually placed in your life during your whole lifetime that were put in there to observe you and report back to these secret societies. Like, you're going to find out your best friend in college was probably one. You'll find out, like, your aunt was one of them, or, you know, like an old boss, like all this stuff. Like, I'm finding out with all these people that are attacking me now, right? Because now there's 2 inheritances, okay?
And there where she said, yeah, I wish I'd have got, you know, like I said, I've been doing this many years, yeah, and this was before, like, I don't want to say too much, but again, like, I'm walking the street with my finger, and then you hear the name mentioned, you know what I mean? They don't, you know, things like you don't want him touched and fucking all this bullshit, do you know what I mean? They don't want him touched, leave him alone, and all of this, you know what I mean? I'm like the untouchable, you know, even in the jail where I wish I could have had my recorders and videos in there, but anyway, that's another story. But even in there, they go, oh, he's the hardest man in Yarmouth then, is he's untouchable, do you see what I mean? That's how powerful these people are within the community, you know what I mean? Whether I'm touched or gonna get fucking killed or harassed is down to them. But because they've been doing it so many years, yeah, and decades, that little snowball they threw down the fucking hill has gone fucking, you know, it's now like a boulder. It's not a boulder, it's fucking like a mountain rolling down a mountain, if you know what I mean, you know, and it's expanded, it's grown, and it's an amassed, you know what I mean, and they can't stop it, do you know what I mean? There's nothing going to stop my gang stalking ever, you know what I mean, because these perverts can't stop from the beginning, do you know what I mean? It's gone on years and years and years, do you know what I mean? Everyone's picking up on it, everyone's saying it, the same thing over and over and over and over again, but the real perverts within the community are the perverts, do you know what I mean? The ones that are dealing drugs to your children, you know what I mean? I don't care, you're sitting there now, yeah, and you've got your little child there, say 1 month old, 2 month old, whether your child's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't care how old your child is, I guarantee you by the time she's 15 or he's 15, 16, yeah, these people are going to be introducing drugs to them, because that's the fucking agenda. Because while people are on drugs, they're not fucking thinking who's this, who's that. They're looking for their score, do you see what I mean? And they're going to keep robbing and stealing and doing what they need to do. Not everyone. But the point is, it keeps their fucking Masonic police busy. Do you see what I mean? It keeps their Masonic people in the courts busy. Do you see what I mean? It keeps them employed to keep control of you. Keep you under that thumb. You see, that's what it's all about. Once you know their system, that's what it's all about.
So they're all like, it just started out with like this one with my aunt, right? But now it's like my aunt recruited so many people and got them so like in their heads that they were going to get this money. And now it's to the point where I'm still here and all of them have turned into like demons, like people I wouldn't even recognize. These are people that are like my friends that I thought loved me, like family that I thought loved me, like I'm talking like childhood friends that I haven't talked to in years. And it was like this plight was when I was so broken and down that they thought, you know, whatever, you know, it'll be fine. No one will ever know. But now it's just to the point where this is going to be something that is going to show so many people how wicked people can be for money. But the biggest thing about this too was when you have so much greed inside of you, you attract the demonic greed, the demon for greed. So you are basically seduced, like literally just like wrapped around this with this entity of greed.
And that's what it's all about. It's the greed and the power, you see. And all my friends, not all of them, I can't say all of them. Like I said, I was with one last night, for instance, one of my friends of 50 years, yeah, and nothing noncy, rapist or anything else come out of their mouth. Do you know what I mean? Because they know me. So again, anyone sitting at that table, they got to explain themselves how they know me. Have they socialised with me? Have they been with me? You know what I mean? They can't. You know what I mean? All they know is the narrative, what they keep parroting. You see what I mean? But try get the nonsense to come step forward. The rapists, the ones who are getting a nosh off the dog and all of that, I ain't talking shit. That's through fucking proven facts, yeah? Do you know what I mean? But he must be standing there now, one of them, because I keep going on about the dogs and the pets and the shit like that. He must be going, oh my God, you know what I mean? What the fuck? But everyone, like I said, I'm going around and I'm telling people. But are they saying that to you? I don't know. I don't give a fucking care. But you're the one who's getting your dog to give you a nosh. You know what I mean? You're a fucking pet, abuser. You're a pet rapist. But that's true facts. That's one of the people, he's dealt drugs all his life, what a fucking idiot. And I can go on about the rest, the ones who took a 14-year-old girl, 15-year-old girl to do porn movies. Do you know what I mean? Who the fuck does that? Or because they've got a heroin habit, they're having to prostitute themselves to pay your bills so you can put a bet on in a fucking shop. Do you know what I mean? What the fuck, mate? Anyway, that's another story, or another legend that was sleeping with all the young girls that had come to the nightclub, yeah? Because like I said, they run the clubs and the pubs and all the rest of it, and the stories, is all repetitive. It's all on the fucking crime podcasts if you listen to it. He's sleeping all the youngsters, and he slept with his own daughter, but he was a legend within the community. But he was there with the G-Travellers, the Templars, you know what I mean? Giving it the funny handshake with all the criminals and all the rest of it. You know what I mean? I know the story. I know the fucking history of Great Yarmouth. Don't tell me. I know.
So that's all you can think about. So you get to a point when you're just in that zone and you don't cleanse yourself, you don't raise your vibration, you don't do anything good, and all you think is bad, that demon gets stronger. And so then it consumes their entire mind and body, and all of a sudden the next thing you know, they want to off their sister that they hardly know or they knew their whole life and they didn't hate them that much. Your own aunt is hiring someone for 30 grand to come take you out. And so these people don't know that they're being controlled by something else. And this is how dangerous these entities can be. And these people are consumed with it. And the sad part is, I was told, shown that, some of these people are going to wake up in prison. And they're going to remember everything that they did. And they're going to, it's going to just kill.
And that's the thing. Anyone talking about me, I don't care who it is, what it is, ask who their father is. Are they connected to the Masonic Lodge? Yeah? And who their nation of people are. Do you know what I mean? That's the important one. Who is your people? Who is your tribe of people? Yeah? Because they're the ones control the narrative. You know what I mean? And again, like I said, I've got that in plenty of videos. I'm just getting a fork. I just had a bit of cake. But that's the thing, anyone that sits at that table, that's going to oust me out. Because, they just keep talking behind my back. Let's fucking get it out in the open. I'm the one who's supposed to be hiding away in shame. You know what I mean? Why didn't they come up and forward? Let's expose me to the community. You've got a narrative of running around, feeding your drugs to everyone and controlling the narrative of everything what people are saying. Come and do it in the open. Let's get on a Masonic altar. The perfect cube of Saturn. The perfect ashlar. Actually, I'll sit on the rough ashlar stone and you lot can sit around your little Masonic perfect Satan, you know, the perfect Ashler cube, and then oust me out about this community, and we'll put it all live, you know, we'll put it all into the groups of Great Yarmouth and all the rest of it, and you can oust me out as the nonce, the rapist, the fucking pervert, whatever you've got. Bring all your evidence, bring the police, because then they can arrest me straight away, can't we? Or they'll be arresting you. Do you know what I mean? We'll see who get arrested, do you know what I mean? Who's the criminals, do you know what I mean? Either you, the gang stalking, drug dealing perverts, and then we can, when we've done all that and we've shown out who's the perverts, who's the rapists, who's the nonces, yeah, then we can see who the drug dealers are. We'll put all the real extensive research into who's fucking dealing the drugs, what families are responsible for that, what businesses do they run, the pubs, the clubs, and the other businesses, and all their interests, all their little fingers in all them little pies, and get people really looking at them. Sorry. Like I said, I've got something in my throat. What these have done, I don't know what it is. Because I never cough. But anyway, that's what we'll do. We'll expose me, and then once we've exposed me, we can use all your research that you've done to actually oust me out in this community. We'll use all your skills of the Freakmasons, yeah? I mean, where are they anyway? Where are all these men within the community? Good question. I've got a video on that as well somewhere. But where are all the men in the community? You know, why aren't they doing anything about the drug dealers? Why aren't there no marches on the drug dealers? Yeah, there's plenty of kids been killed, maimed and harmed over the years, shot. I've shown it in my videos. So why is there no... Because, like I said, they control the narrative. You know what I mean? They control it. That's why you'll never see a march about the drug dealers. Why ain't the government put any advertisement on the telly about drug dealers? Hey? Why ain't they really... They know who's fucking who within the community. You know what I mean? It all boils down to families. Like I said, families. Again, it's in videos I've got, and it's all on the podcasts if you watch them. And they're all Freakmasons. You know? Oh.
So some of you, depending where you're at on your...
I don't know if this is a video, is it? No, it's a picture. Oh yeah, I just took a screenshot. So again, pause, read it, let's move on, you know what I mean? See, unalive yourself. This is what they want you to do. They want you to unalive yourself. I won't do that. You know what I mean? I'm not intending on disappearing or anything else, because I am the go-to MDB. The grand architect of the ultimate Masonic demise, baby. And I'm going to keep going on for however long I live, or they unalive me, of course, which they plan to do many, many times, whether it's knock me off my motorbike or... Anyway, that's another story. Or, you know, like them two G Traveller Templars we had on the bridge in London when I went to the Tommy... Again, you know, they didn't realise, you know, why are they talking about stabbing me? They want to put a knife in me. You know what I mean? Why? Who are you? Who were them two people to me? They're nothing. I've never seen them before in my life. But I guarantee it, they were connected to G Travellers, Templars, do you know what I mean, in the Masonic Lodge, just by the way they were dressed. You know what I mean? I could tell. But anyway, that's another story. Again, you can see some of the, you know, in my videos, you know, most of the evidence is there. You know, like I said, I've got it all. But maybe those two people, you know, can explain why they were on the bridge wanting to put a knife in me. Do you know what I mean? Maybe they'd step forward. They seem to know more about me. They want to put a knife in me because I presume I'm a rapist, nonce, or pervert. So, yeah. But no, they're there for the money. Do you know what I mean? You know, whatever they're being paid... You know, or they're there for their king and their queen. I don't know. You know, what do I know? I'm too profane. You know what I mean? You know, but or it's something to do in my history that goes back from, you know, again, it goes into my history of where we had to change our name, you know, because of a certain battle and we were hunted. Do you know what I mean? It might be something to do with that. And that king is still taking his fucking oust out on us. Do you know what I mean? That's another story in other videos I've got. But anyway, maybe them two travelling Templars there on the bridge that want to put a knife in me at the Tommy rally. I think it was the Tommy rally I was at. But anyway, maybe those two would try, maybe come and like explain themselves, you know, and we can ask, who's your daddy? Who's your mummy? Are you Freakmasons? Who's your community? Who's your cult leader? What nation of people are you belonging to? Just what I mean? We can ask all of that and see how they're connected to me. Why would they want to put a knife in me? Strange indeed. Strange indeed. How they get you.
So another tactic of organised harassment is veiled threats, whether that's threats of sabotage, threats of violence, threats to unalive. I think I've said in a previous video that anything that can have text can be used to convey a veiled threat. And I know that for me, I've had veiled death threats through car license plates, cars spelling KLD. On one occasion, I've seen...
See, and that's what it is. There's always veiled threats, and that's what the street theatre is, you know. I was in Edinburgh. No, I weren't Edinburgh. Where was I? Oh, I can't remember where I was. It was in Scotland anyway. Inverness. I believe I was in Inverness, yeah. And I was in I believe it was a pound stretcher. Maybe they could step forward and oust me out and answer the question of why, when I'd be separated from my children, they'll get me. You see what I'm saying? See, so they're standing behind me in the queue, these two people, I'll just say two people, druggies, of fucking course. And the street theatre was, they want to separate him from his children. You know what I mean? And once they want him away from his children. Once they separate him from his children, then they'll get him. You see what I mean? That was a veiled threat that these two people, maybe they'll come out from the Masonic, you know, because that's who they're working for, the Freakmasons and the travelling Templars here. Maybe they'll step forward and oust me out as a pervert, rapist, or whatever they're fucking saying. Do you know what I mean? Maybe they'll step up. Not that I know them. Don't know them from Adam. You know, again, it's that link. You know, maybe the guy who I photographed in the club that night, with the pub, there's a pub a side street, I don't know, the landlady recognised me, because again, they own the pubs and the clubs, and then the gangster that sat beside me in the same club with his black dark jacket on, blah, 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 maybe he'll step forward. I don't think he will, though, because they don't like exposing themselves, only to children. Obviously, they're always exposing themselves to children. But, yeah. Or, I know, here's a good one. How about the Soham nightclub I was in, when I kept handing my ticket to you and you were throwing it on the floor? Or when you put a needle in me, see, they used like, you know, like a needle, that was like, you know, where you do like a, that was like a in my forearm, do you know what I mean? What sort of needle was it? It was like a when you got high blood pressure, one of them. It was like one of them. It just like a click. You go, and the needle goes in and out. But that was so fast, and I was a bit pissed then. That's why I don't drink no more, yeah? Because I was compromised and I couldn't think properly. But I've got the card anyway with the fingerprint on, and I've still got it to this day, yeah, that card, right, with his fingerprints on it, right, because I picked it up off the floor, two of the cards, and I put them in, and I actually put them in, wrapped them and preserved them, let's put it that way, in plastic bags and thingy. But so whether his prints are on that today, and that's gone back like fucking hell, man, that's gone back 15 years maybe, yeah, maybe that person there, well, there's two of them I believe, because they don't come in singles, do they, the fucking dipsticks. But again, we'll just, you know, I could name him now if I wanted to, but I won't. But maybe that pervert will come forward and oust me. You know, I mean, look, come on, let's get up there. Let's get in the table, show me and oust me. And then we'll talk about your family, can't we? And who you are. Exactly who you are, eh? Maybe you'll come, you know. You followed me enough to get down to Soham. So, what the hell? Come and prove me. Come on, get me out. Oust me out. See, I could name loads of people and incidences like this. Do you know what I mean? You know, and like I said, I haven't got to connect the dots. The police do it. Do you know what I mean? And when they're arrested, they're all going to be grassing themselves up like fucking idiots. Do you know what I mean? Because none of them want to go. They especially don't want to be put away for life. Yeah, on a conspiracy charge. Do you know what I mean? Or even if it comes down to, like I said, in a joint enterprise. Do you know what I mean? They don't want that. You know what I mean? And that includes that little G Traveller Templar who's respected in this town with his businesses, who followed me up Northgate Street, and the one that stood outside. How about these two couple of clowns, yeah, that are so in love? Where was it? Iceland, yeah, you stood at Iceland like that, flicking your head round. You didn't see the cameras though, did you? Wonderful, but you're so respected, you know, with your kids and all that, running fucking whatever, blah blah blah. But maybe them two could step forward, you know. Oh, baby. But yeah, maybe they'll step forward and get on the Masonic Satan cube and oust me out in this community. You know, they're respected. They're always in the fucking Yarmouth Mercury anyway, like I said. You know, that's like the victims of Jimmy Savile. You know, every time he came on the telly, do you know what I mean? How they must have felt, you know what I mean? Just like me when I see him go across the paper on the news and all of that, you know, like heroes, like they've done something productive. They only own what they own is because it's been willed down by nepotism, or because they're running the drugs for them people. Do you see what I mean? And you're getting that power because they decide and deem fit to use you to give you that power. Do you know what I mean? Not because you're special or anything fucking else. Do you know what I mean? Same as most of the people in this fucking town that run fucking certain clubs and pubs and fucking all the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? You know, like the rugby team man I mentioned earlier, you know. Yeah, he played rugby, the one who was on when I was mentioning, you know, Carlos, the one before Carlos, you know what I mean, him, you know what I mean, he played rugby, do you know what I mean, again, another was run by Freakmasons, you know, this is what they do, you see, in your community, they run everything, the football teams and fucking all that, but it's other videos. Anyway, let's carry on.
KLD plated car right next to a FAM plated car. They often have cars with X next to people's initials, as well as KLL, KLA. I've had all manner of variations of veiled death threats through cars.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. I've had different, like, registrations in front of me, yeah, and one was a Gautu, believe it or not, you know, the grand architect of the universe, yeah, the Gautu, the registration was a Gautu, yeah, so whether they did that on purpose or there's a reg out there that's the Gautu, I don't know. I never researched it, I was too busy doing other stuff and that, but the reg, you know, obviously I got it on video, but it was a Gautu reg, do you know what I mean? I couldn't fucking believe it. I was like, Gautu. And another thing they did was, and again, I was looking at them, and I've done a post on it as well, but it was one of them, like a BT van with all the bubbles and that, yeah, but the bubbles were in like, it was cleverly done, very cleverly done, but the van pulled up in front of me, and it was the bubbles, but what it was a Masonic, cleverly done Masonic square and compass, yeah, they must have had a special sign right to do it. A square and compass. You couldn't see it like just to look at it. You had to have that vision, you know, where you like when you know, you look at a thing and it has a set of numbers in it. It was done like that, yeah, and it had the all-seeing eye in the square and compass, and it was like bang, and it just flashed out in front of me. I thought, fucking hell, mate, you know what I mean? But they did that, you know what I mean? They blatantly did that, you know what I mean? It was just all bubbles, and then all of a sudden, bang, it came, the square and the compass was there with the all-seeing eye in it, you know what I mean? And that was done specifically for me. You know what I mean? Well, no one else would have seen it anyway, because only my eyes, that was for my eyes only, do you know what I mean? But again, I had to drive off somewhere else and that, or it disappeared, I can't remember what happened there. So anyway, yeah, so they've done that with me, you know, like I said, they had the Gautu registrations and all that, you know, you see a lot of repeated registrations, because they use their own cars anyway, fucking dipsticks, do you know? And even then they're putting their faces up front, you know what I mean? That's how thick they are. And like I said, when they're tracking you, they turn up, Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, I'm here on the camera. You know, obviously, you can't see the camera or the microphone, but I'm actually talking, and I'll say, "What's this?" Duh, 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 and it just it happens. You're like, "What the fuck?" So how do I know that? Because I know I've been doing it a very long time, you know. But anyway, that's another story. But yeah, they did the go-to reg on me, and then they did this van that had like balloon bubbles or whatever, and then all of a sudden, my eyes sort of adjusted to the what was in it, and it was the square in the compass with the Masonic eye in it. Do you know what I mean? Wow.
License plates, which is why I typically ignore them these days. But I have noticed an increase in cars around me that have X and initials, seemingly, or X something something or something something X, whatever. And also, I've had a letter sent from my energy provider addressed to the executor of the estate of a family member who's still alive. That was the most brazen one, because how does that happen? How does that happen? And they couldn't give me a valid explanation. You know, plausible deniability, they'll say it's human error, but it's not. It's not.
And believe me, it ain't. They run it. I think I got it in. I uploaded it on one of my videos where I was talking to, like, I don't know if it was a bailiff. It was either a bailiff or someone from the government official, you know, like a town hall or something. Anyway, and I started the spiel off of how to, you know, like the Freemason recognition, you know, and I was going like, you know. I'll tap my feet 3 times and all this sort of bollocks. And he was giving me the commands back, you know. And he go, "No, that's as far as I'm taking it." And he got scared and, like, you know, finished the conversation. But he was a Knights Templar, you know, running that particular switchboard for the Freemasons. You know what I mean? Because, like for instance, when you go to church, right, and you confess, yeah, that padre is hiding his Masonic apron. Okay, and all he's doing when you confess your sins or anything else, he's looking to see or using that as an information, a source of information to use against you or anything that's going on within the community to do for blackmail. Do you see what I mean? And that's what that's all about. You know, when you're scared or frightened, you'll go to the police, yeah? And you go, so they warn the people off to go, you know, calm down, don't do it. Do you know what I mean? And that's the same as if you run to like your when you know you lay down and you speak to him, what's his friggin' name? I can't remember his name. Or like a psychiatrist, yeah. Do you see what I mean? They're all sources, yeah, to spy on you as a community. When you're in the pub, yeah, they got their Freemasons standing there, they're doing their signs behind you, they're laughing at you. But if you say anything, and I don't care who you are, and if you want to test it, you can, yeah. You say something like, I'm trying to think of an example, like, you know, let's just say like you had a stash of guns and you're going to do a revolution, yeah? The police will be on your door like that, yeah? You know what I mean? That'll be the Masonic police that turn up, of course, but that'll be the Freemasons knowing, yeah? They're the ones that are going to report you because that's their job to spy on you, yeah? You know what I mean? And that's why I say, like, November the 5th, you know, Guy Fawkes, that's how he got caught. You know what I mean? He didn't get caught because he was whatever, they were clever or anything. He was conspiring with Freemasons, do you know what I mean? That knew what he was up to, do you see what I mean? And that's what they do within your community. They spy on you, and if there's anything going to go down, it's going to be in a pub. You know what I mean? People meet in the pub. People talk in the pub. That's why they control the pubs, you know, and they pretend they're your friends. They pretend they're part of you. But as soon as you speak out of turn as a profane person, they're going to get interaction. They're going to turn your thought pattern away from that, dissuade you. They'll try to dissuade you. If they can't dissuade you, then they will get you arrested and gain as much evidence on you to put you away. Do you know what I mean? So be careful you ain't dealing with Freemasons. Like I said, this is what you're dealing with all the time, and they play all sides. If let's just say like Red Lodge, Blue Lodge, yeah? Okay, you got one army, that's the Red Army, you know, again, you know, we'll come back. And then you got the Blue Army, right? Now, They'll be in the Red Army, they'll be in the Blue Army, and they'll work both sides. They'll send the profane to storm the bunkers. Yeah, the normal family members, yeah. Because anyone who's high, see, this is when they used to do the prisoner swaps. Do you see what I mean? They'd only swap high-ranking Freemasons, you know, commissioned officers and all of that. They were all Freemasons, saving their own asses. Didn't matter if you were profane. They weren't swapping the profane and the peasants. No, you were fucking standing toe-to-toe shooting each other. You weren't allowed to shoot the officers because they were all Freemasons. Do you see what I mean? This is how they fought their wars, you know, the blue coats, the red coats, with their big white crosses on them. You put two together, you get the square and calm piss. Ritualistic, you see what I mean? Do the research. It's all there. You know, you got the grey lodge, yeah? And then the blue lodge, you know, the north and the south fighting, you know what I mean? Cross swords and all the rest of it, you know. Oh, it goes on and on and on. But anyway, let's go move on. Yeah, look, what is gangstalking? Gangstalking, and I've had all of this. Contacting friends and family of a target, physically following the target. God, I've got that so many times. Hacking of targets' phones and emails. Now, I've done a little bit on that, where they'll borrow your phone and then put a tracker on it. Do you know what I mean? Or spyware to listen to, or they can read your fucking text, yeah? So everything you type, they get that as well. You know what I mean? Or they just GPS, you know, basically they follow you wherever you need to be. So if you go in for a pub for a drink, they'll come there to make you uncomfortable. Do you know what I mean? You go to a restaurant, they're going to be there to make you uncomfortable. Do you see what I mean? Maybe them two people on that table, yeah, in Estabola, yeah? Them two perverts at the table that were in front of me where he was leaning over. You know, the one that put the, I think he put a GPS tracker on my bike. You know, if that's the same guy, I couldn't, like, I'll pretend I don't know. But, yeah, maybe them two perverts could step forward, you know. I doubt it, though. Again, cowards, you know what I mean? Anyway, let's go move on, you know. Like I said, I've got it all, man, all of it, you know what I mean? But they ain't going to come forward. Of course they ain't, you know what I mean? Because you got two people there. What you got? Two bullies. Yeah, they got nothing, no proof of anything. But why are you stalking me? Why are you a pervert stalking me? Do you know what I mean? All around, just crazy. You know what I mean? Tell us why you're stalking me. What have I done? Where are you? You know, what have I supposed to have done? You know, and we can go on and on and on with that one. But they'll come and tell you because they are going to step up. These are part of the community. These are the legends within my community. They're going to come forward. We're going to sit at the Masonic Lodge, round the Masonic cube of Satan, and we're going to talk about the pervert stalking. They're going to oust me out in this community. We're going to do it live, yeah? Live. We're waiting for these people to step forward, you know. There's so many of them that can step forward. Hundreds of them. You know what I mean? The real men in the community, you know, the ones that are going to tell the drug dealers to stop dealing drugs, you know. Anyway, breaking into targets' homes, I've had that, and into the cars, that's another one. Approaching the target in various places because they put GPS on you, like I said. Making the target broke and in debt, which they do. You know, I lost jobs. Like I said, I worked offshore. Could go into that. I've got it in all the other videos, certain jobs I've done. I've helped people and all. You know, again, I can't get into that. It's in videos. Making the target homeless. Again, I've mentioned that in videos. You know, even when I first moved in here, I'll just call him Darren, said to my fucking landlord, you know, let him move in for a couple of weeks. When he's moved in, kick him out. You know what I mean? You see what I'm saying? That's what you're fucking dealing with, you know? Crazy. But the person he used to work for kicked him out of his job, but he's part of the Masonic Lodge, not him, the person. But again, you know, the person he was working for is a fucking Lord, Duke or Earl. Do you know what I mean? And is in the Freemason Lodge and owns lots and lots of property, you know, down the high street, let's say, yeah, just so I don't go too far into the name calling. But that's what I'm saying, do you see what I mean? But him, again, you know what I mean? This is the sort of shit I have to put up with, you know. Anyway, another story. Making the target isolated. Now, again, you know, you could put a camera on my door, right? And you'll see no friends come to my door knocking for me. You'll not see no friends ringing my phone, you know, my local, you know, the ones I know, blah, blah, yes. I'm on about my friends from many years ago, you know what I mean? You know, the ones I was at school with and all the rest of it, they're all Freemasons, you know, they all got the chart, you know, all successful, do you know what I mean? Let's put it that way, do you know what I mean? They were not fucking not even knocking on my door, but anyway, that's another story. Making the target suicidal, well, they've never done that with me, thank God. And then destroying the target through cyberbullying, you know what I mean? Well, I ain't had that neither, no cyberbullying, and that's the strange thing. You look at all my videos, all my posts, you get the odd comment I get, but there's no constant bully, there's nothing. Why? Who's shutting that narrative down? Normally you get it all, you know, there's one guy who did it, where it was something like e-babies or whatever, which was a fucking idiot, he does it to everyone. But nothing, you know. I used to get hammered and slaughtered by Freemasonry all the time. They used to battle with me, fight with me. Now I get nothing. You know, Cecil Bear, yeah, and I can't remember his name, whoever, but they hide, you know, I don't know who they are or what they are. But I used to get that, you know, and I used to do scripts, you know, in my forum, you know, but now I don't get nothing. No one, you know, no Freemason, no nothing, because they know, do you know what I mean? They know what I say is true. Again, you know, it's the same, like I said, it's the same script over and over again. I don't know how to hide that, sorry. But again, look, digital harassment, property tampering, again, that tampering of property, yeah. I've just shown you in the video, the first part of the video, where they, you know, they've sawn through the gas pipe. Do you know what I mean? There's other things they do, which I've gone into other videos, so I'm not going to go into it here. But they also put a mark, a Masonic mark on you. Again, I've covered in videos, where they'll put a mark on you and they'll tell them that you're a gang-stalked individual. You know, you're a perjured individual. Do you know what I mean? And how they treat you accordingly is dependent on that Masonic mark. You know, gaslighting, all that, you know, you're imagining it. Well, I don't know. You know, am I imagining that I've recorded all this? Am I imagining that I've filmed half of this? Am I imagining it? You know what I mean? I don't know. Did I imagine that 2 G travellers were going to put a knife in me at the fucking Tommy event? I don't know. I'm imagining a lot of shit by the look of things. Again, workplace sabotage. I've had that. I've got that in videos. You know what I mean? I've had it all. It doesn't matter what it is. You know what I mean? You know, strangers testing me. You know, like the little pervert. Maybe these two could turn up, yeah? You know, this pervert outside the bank in the high street. He's staring at me, just staring at me, staring at me, staring at me. You know, trying to make himself look threatening. Maybe that he would stand up and get on the Masonic altar with me. You know what I mean? He'll oust me out. Why he stood, you know, there staring at me. And then when his pervert handler turned up, patting him on the back, going, well done. Here's your Masonic gang stalking, drug dealing, pervert fucking medal. You know what I mean? Maybe them two could, you know, we could put their faces up now. Maybe I'll do it in the next video, put their faces up and see if they'll come forward. And we can ask who their family is. Why are you staring at me like a ninja? You know what I mean? And who's your fucking old man bum stretching you to do this or what? You know what I mean? What is he to you? Who was that man who was patting you on the back going, well done, you're the best, and get love bombing you to get you to stare at me like you're a threat or some shit? You know what I mean? Wanker. Maybe those two will turn up, but they won't because they'll hide. That's what they do. They're experts at hiding. But yeah, I don't know. I might, you know, I mean, anyone can step up. I mean, like, there's only me. I'm going to be defending myself. Me, yeah, I'm on my own. You know, I've mentioned, you know, the bridge, you know, G travellers that put a knife in me. The one outside the bank, or the one who followed me up Northgate Street, you know, where the King's Arms is. You know, maybe they'll step up. You know, or the one outside the, you know, the fucking Iceland. You know, all them different people can step up and stand up, because I've imagined it, of course. Remember that, I'm like fantasizing here, like, you know, I'm on loads of drugs, I'm fucking out of my head on drink and fucking whatever else, do you know what I mean? Because it's all imaginary according to these freaktards, do you know what I mean? But I've had it all, you know, all the time. You know, and again, the threats is a fucking thing, and the attempt to isolate me, you know, they try to isolate me. You cannot isolate me. I've got friends that love me, yeah, and they stick with me. I've got, you know, you perverts are nothing to me, never will be anything to me. You know, I don't spend my time thinking about you because I don't need to. Do you know what I mean? Because I've got it all recorded and filmed, yeah? You guys more than likely think about me because you're the ones who have stalked me for 45 years. But you're legends now. You've built your careers. You got one pervert, right? You know, he's a rapist. And he's sitting there going, yeah, I want to leave a legacy. Fucking legacy? You're a fucking joke, mate. You know what I mean? And then he's talking about Rupert Bear, you know, Rupert Lowe. Yeah, follow Rupert Lowe because he's a fucking robot, freak mason. Do you see what I mean? They all are. And it's the same narrative they give. They can't help themselves. The narrative is blatantly all the time. And the only corruption you've got to look about, yeah, you know, you got Parliament and all of that cack. But in Parliament, just sort the people out within your town because they're working for these people in Parliament. Do you know what I mean? But they don't want you knowing that. And there's kings and queens within your towns and cities. You know, like there's one in Norfolk, there's one in Suffolk. There's many and multiple kings and queens, yeah? And there's, I can't remember what it's called. Like if you watch the Peaky Blinders, yeah, the one that's just come out, yeah, they talk about it in there, yeah? He's called the Ad Obum or whatever, Ad Odom or whatever. I can't remember what the bloody word is now, but they run the community, yeah? And they take the control, they control the narrative and everything else, do you know what I mean? Anyway.
Gangstalkers are heavily grounded in black magic, Satanism, and witchcraft. And if you are being gangstalked, I want to give you some strategies, some weapons to come up against them and to make this dissipate and leave your life. But first I want to tell you, if you are being gang stalked, it's being demonically stalked. You have a call and a purpose on your life from the Lord. Believe it. I have come out of gang stalking from 2014 to 2016. I was gang stalked. And I want to let you know that Romans 8:28 in the Bible says that whatever Satan meant for evil, God will turn around for your good, for those who love them and are called according to his purposes. So listen, you may not even realize that you have a call and a purpose from the Lord yet, but trust me, you're targeted for a reason. You're getting a front row seat, how to see how the enemy works. You're being trained up behind enemy lines. The veil and the scales are falling from your eyes.
And they've fallen from mine because I know exactly who they are, what they are, and I see them, and they don't like it. Do you know what I mean? I see who they are, and they don't trick me. They don't fucking do nothing, mate. I see them for what they truly are, you know, and what they get, especially the Masonic grip they have on my town. Do you know what I mean? And the thing is, like I said, it is rooted in the occult. Like I said, you go to the Minster and you look at the pews, they tried to scratch it out, you know what I mean? The Royal Order of Druids is on the pews, do you know what I mean? What the Druids got to do with the Minster? Yeah, and then then you've got the Royal Archmasons, yeah? What are they doing? What is that? Why they tried to erase that from the church, yeah? See my videos, I've got it, yeah? Why is the square and calm piss all over the fucking Masonic organ with their 666 symbolism? Why is all the heraldry shields and the families all around in the church? Why are the Masonic slates, the charity slates full of Freemasons, yeah? Why are they all fucking pounding on that Minster? Because that's a fucking important example, yeah, of what run and controls our community. You know what I mean? And them same names, them family names that are in that church, in that Minster, yeah, what will get in the paper and all of that with the Minster, yeah. It's all connected, you know what I mean? Once you connect the dots, and why is there 666 above the door? 2232, 3 times above the door. Same as on the police station, the same symbolism, 232, 3 times, 666, 3 Masonic cubes. Why?
So the strategy I want to give you today is you need to go to the Word of God, the Bible, because the powers that be that are stalking you, trapping you, trying to drive you crazy and suicidal are using
black magic, witchcraft to do it. The only way to combat that in your life is to come at them with the Word of God. If that is you need to get a Bible, and you need to start praying, and you need to start warring in the Spirit against these demons, and you will see things change a lot quicker than if you didn't. And if I can pray for you, if you're being gang-stalked, comment, and I will put you on my daily prayer list and begin to war for you as well. God bless you.
And again, like she said, follow her in the name. But again, like she said, you know, you are up against demonic people. Yeah, they do these secret rituals. Yeah, they're all over the fucking place. They're all around you within the community. They have a strong narrative. Yeah, they control everything. So you can't go up against them. It doesn't matter what you do, what you say. You cannot go up against them because they control it, and they fucking can make you piss poor. They can make you suicidal. They can do it all. Do you know what I mean? But once you oust them, like me, see, she says use the Bible. Now, an interesting post come across today. I mean, Jesus wasn't averse, right, to going into a temple, which was a Masonic temple, by the way, and turning over tables. Do you see what I mean? You know, and getting the old whip out and start lashing them Freakmasons that were the tax collectors and all that, who were fiddling the profane, that were coming to the temple. You see what I mean? It's just changed, you know, the temples, the Masonic temples, yeah, what were back in the day that Jesus went into, yeah, they were Masonic lodges. That's why they crucified him, because they gang stalked him, yeah. Again, you had a group of men persecute him. Do you see what I mean? Pointed at him. He's this, he's that. Do you see what I mean? Because he didn't have that narrative of what they wanted to hear. Yeah, and he's saying, you're fucking corrupt. They all ganged up on him, didn't they? You know what I mean? From the Masonic lodge that he invaded, turned over the tables and lashed them all, yeah? You know what I mean? So really, we should go to the Masonic lodges and turn over their fucking altars and see where their hidden chambers are. See where their hidden corridors and their tunnels lead to within your towns and cities. Same as the ones that go from the Minster, do you know what I mean, to the wherever, I don't know, you know, the ones in the police station. They're all connected, do you know what I mean? You know, the tunnels under your towns are all connected for these Freakmasons that use them all the time to outwit you, you know what I mean? But where was I? Yeah, so yeah, Jesus, like I said, he went into the Masonic temple. He turned over all the tables, whipped and lashed all them Freakmasons, all them Master Masons, all them fucking Grandmasters. He was whipping the fucking lashing them. And what did they do? He stood on his own, and then they all persecuted him. You know what I mean? Imagine that. So let's get down the lodges today and see what we can find. Get the forensics and see what sort of like sexual acts are being enacted in the Masonic lodges, if there has been any murders. And then every cornerstone that's ever been laid by the Freakmasons, let's see if there's a body in them. Anyway, that's in my videos as well. Remember, blood makes good mortar.
I'm gonna say it like this. If these folks were really doing the right thing, if this was really good for the community, then why is it such a secret? Because the feds have no problem putting someone on blast on the news. So if someone...
I don't know what happened there. But again, the thing is, what he says, it's communities, yeah? It's your community that's dealing drugs. Do you see what I mean? It's your community that are gang stalking you. It's your community, those leaders, yeah, that are getting them special privileges to bum stretch kids. Them leaders, yeah, are controlling, those leaders are controlling your clubs, you know, whether it's the Scouts or whatever, you know, the Girl Guides. Again, if you didn't sure what the Scouts did, look at my video. I think it's Masonic Increasing Army Part 7 or 8. And you'll see where the Freemasons, yeah, are all the scout leaders. They molested all the children and they got away with it. It didn't go into the press. It didn't go into anything. Biggest organisation ever, run by Freemasons. All the fucking Grand Masters, Worshipful Master, Master Masons, you know what I mean, were all the Cub Scout leaders that molested all the children within that organisation. And they didn't answer for anything of it. Let me show you, just to prove it, okay? Oh, hey, yeah, I'll show you that. I'm so wonderful. How do I do this? I think it's this one.
Real, do you know what I mean? Well, I've been printing these out.
Right, go there. Boom, boom, boom. And then we go down, yeah? Yeah. And this shows you how big their army is. You should watch my videos, the Masonic increase. This shows you, again, it's part of Gangstalking, yeah? And I talk about it. Oh, where have I gone? Yeah, hey. And it's there it is, look. This one here, look. The Masonic true grip of a Master Mason, yeah? And I think there's like 5 or 6 parts to that. 5 parts, maybe 6. 5 parts. But if you watch them, it shows you how you can get inducted, yeah, into a hypnosis state, yeah? And this is what they do in your communities. They're professional. They learn this in the Masonic Lodge because they're like Hogwarts, yeah? They learn how to mix drugs, potions and all of that. But this shows you how someone can be put, yeah, into a hypnotic state and they don't even know what the fuck's going on with them. Do you know what I mean? So they could grape you and then you'll forget about it because they've hypnosis you on it. Obviously, they use drugs like Hypnol and all of that to drug, you know, they'll stick a needle in you, you know what I mean, drug you and then rape you and think you don't know about it. You know, things like this. This is what they do. Again, I've got it all in videos, but that's another story. So watch that, you know. All my videos teach you, you know, about the Masonic symbolism, yeah, how they manipulate and shush up their crimes, regardless of where they are within, you know, across the globe. But it's the same problem over and over again. You know, like they're the undertakers. Where are the bodies? Where are the bodies going? There's not enough bodies in the ratio. And this was when they were, you know, they had his locked down, like, you know what I mean? And again, the people that were controlling, right, that were doing the bouncing work on their like little centres where their doctors were the same people that were controlling the doors, the pubs and the clubs. Do you see what I mean? But they were protecting the doctors. Do you see what I mean? And again, I'll show you in videos again. And then there's Masonic police symbolism. Wait, there's down here. Let me have a look. Keep going. But I show you all the symbolism. It's all within your community on the TV. But this is what you want. Yeah, the Masonic flags, look. You know, you put 2 Union Jacks together, you get the square and calm piss. Put 2 St George's flags together, square and calm piss. 2 Scottish flags together, you get the square and calm piss. You see what I mean? These are all the things I learn you. But this is the one you've got to watch, yeah? Is the Masonic Increasing Army, okay? And it's part 8, look. And what it shows you in this, yeah? And obviously, like I said, I show you all the Masonic Grand Masters, all these people that were looking after the Scouts, yeah, in America, the Boy Scouts of America, look, all these, yeah.
Don't forget that, yeah. These, again, look at the sashes, they're red now, see? Because they got the awards on them, look. See? That's little Freemasonry, eh? There you go, don't forget the girls. I don't know if it's a girl or boy, actually, I'm sorry. But again, look, old men, young boys, yeah? And they're looking all the time to see who to recruit in their army, yeah? Here he is, look, the Cub Master, right? Where he's in there, when he's in his full uniform.
And I keep showing the Cub Masters, yeah? And over and over and over again, yeah? You'll see that the Cub Masters and the Scouts, yeah? Are all Freemasons, yeah? And in the end,
testimonies, do you know what I mean? But again, you can search that up, just put in any country, that's all I did, do you know what I mean? Again, look, Scouts, New South Wales, by far the most difficult to deal with over child sexual abuse claims, yeah? And again, there's something really bad going on in Australia and New Zealand, and and I've heard that from 4 different sources. You know what I mean? That it's more prevalent in Australia and New Zealand.
And again, like I said, this is where it comes down to it.